Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're gonna talk about Makerspace. So let's dive right into it. Well, first we have to understand science itself. Now, science is a tool that allows us to understand what? Basically everything there is in this physical universe. Now, science many times can feel very detached, very uncaring. But here's the sole reason we humans are endeavoring into science is simply because we want our lives to become better. Like, we want to reduce hunger, we want to reduce suffering, we want to reduce diseases. Basically, we want to become better. That's why we are doing science. We are not doing science just so we can write that in a book. That's a very critical aspect. Now, books, you have to understand it. Books are basically past. Somebody have already figured it out. That's why it's in a book. So books are past. They are very good foundation, but not the end game. That's the very scary part. Many times people get lost in the books itself. Like, dude, I studied these books, and they're like, dude, that's past tense. That has already happened. That should be like, okay, what mistakes not to do? Read some books. New mistakes, do new mistakes, and then you will write some another book. Like, that's how we build upon. Like, books should not be like, oh, beginning, end, and like the end. That's not how it works. Now, world is real. It's as real as it can. So your exams, grades, and all that jazz means nothing. So you have to become real. You have to reach a point where it's like, I can do what I'm supposed to do. Now, STEM is something that you will hear all the time. It simply means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM. Now, many people want to add arts into that. So we have STEAM, which is STEM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Because again, you cannot truly make a good product unless art is employed into it. The difference between iPhone and some other generic Android. So what does making it real simply means? Well, you have to understand it. In our today's world, more and more people are realizing, and I don't mean just in India, more and more people throughout the world are realizing that our education system is becoming meaningless. It's like, yeah, we trained you, but for what? Nothing. No use, nothing, zero results. So theory is useless without reality, flat out. And when you see school labs, you see a very well organized, very methodic place and all that. But here's the that's not real life, and not even a biological lab will be like that. It's like it's very very meaningless, so to say. Like, we do not know how to navigate in chaotic environments. We do not know how to do problem solving, because again, we don't have any problem to solve. Everything is like well arranged. Like, literally, I'm not joking. This is a science experiment. I am reasonably sure some of you have done one version of or another version of this, where you are like, okay, this is a battery, connect this resistor, you should register, I'm saying, connect this LED, should glow up. Or like, they're not even mix matching. Is like, give somebody who's like a LED that is like, requires 3 volts, some LEDs that require 2 volts. Like, there's no figuring out. Just like, do this, connect this, and write the value in a graph paper, and like, tada, science. That's not real life. So real life is very complex and very dynamic. Basically, things change. Like, ask any rocket scientist. Like, they will design a model, and here's the biggest problem: it keeps changing. The moment you went up, okay, now fuel has drained, okay, the center of gravity has shifted again. These things are reality. Like, everything in real life is dynamic. So a lab with, like, very pristine and clear, it is not close to real life. But like a makerspace, where it's like, things are scattered about, and you have hundreds of tools, thousands of, that's more close to real life. Now, there is something more horrifying, like very kind of disheartening kind of thing. And more and more people are realizing this also, even in India. And that's why Indian education system is going through a biggest change so far. And it's like, don't let your schooling interfere with your education. Like, our schooling system is tangibly hurting us. It's not just like, okay, it's useless. No, it's hurting our ability to become a problem. So it's hurting our ability to actually do things. It's like, it's actively harming it. It's not like where it's like, who cares? No, it's harming you. Like, if you go through the education system, you try to fit into the education system, you will be worse off than you would be being illiterate. I'm like, illiterate as in, like, you should have the ability to read and write. Those you need to understand, but after that, I'm talking about. So making it real, it's very important. And people have all around the planet have realized that we have to do something about it. Indian education system is going through its biggest reform. And even European Union and Americas and all that jazz, they are all working into improving the makerspace. There is a very good reason for that. Now, reality is something very interesting. We realized this very early on. Tools are becoming cheap nowadays. Like, 3D printer used to be the big, cutting edge technology. NASA used to use that, and like, all that jazz. 3D printer is now a common tool. Like Ender 3, surprisingly cheap. And if you know what you're doing and you are in a place where you have access to, like, Bangalore or Amazon or, like, good sellers and suppliers, you can make a 3D printer for around $150. That's very little. That's like 10,000 rupees or 15,000 if you are, like, stretching a bit. So reality is nowadays tools are very cheap, and I don't mean 3D printer only. 3D printer is generally is the easiest to start with and most attractive, like it attracts the most amount of people. Then you are talking about laser cutting. Those are also very cheap nowadays. What about acrylic cutting? Those are also very cheap nowadays. Like, so you went from laser engravers to laser cutters. What about laser metal cutters? Those are also available nowadays, like without costing too much. Like they used to cost like billions and billions of dollars to, like, only one or two was in the country to, like, yeah, just order it or make it. Like if you know how to work with CO2 lasers or something like that, you can make it. So people are accepting this reality. Is like tool is not precious. Like, this is a very common Indian middle class kind of mentality, where it's like buy expensive things and just block it off, like don't touch it, don't touch it, it will break, it will shatter. I'm like, dude, what's the point of buying it? So people are finally coming out of that, like, protective shell. No, these are tools. They can break, we can repair them, or we can build a new one, we can do a better one. So this acceptance is allowed because of mass production. The more mass production happens, the more, cost of things goes down. So realization is that learning and experience is priceless. Like you cannot put like a price on, like, you having a kid that knows how to use things, knows how to troubleshoot a problem. That is priceless. That's a lifelong skill worth almost like whole education system. Versus that price, people like, dude, take away the education. Because once people realize that, like, how badly our education system being managed, and I mean throughout the planet, people like, dude, shut up. Like, just this makerspace is far more important. Now you can understand this part also, because tools and children are very destructive, very very destructive. Ask any museum or places which are generally frequently visited by children. Children are very destructive. But reality is, you can rebuild a tool. Let's say you built a tool, it breaks because somebody misused it. Okay, you build it again. It's reality. Like, you know how to rebuild it and you will build it. So that's the point. But imagine you being in a society or in an environment where they're like, do not touch any tools because you're not qualified for it. Dude, when the hell would you become qualified for it? Like, that's the first question you should ask yourself. It's like, I am not qualified to touch this. When would I become qualified to? Like, you're doing engineering and all that, and even teachers are showing, this is a mill, this is how it's supposed to work, you should not touch this. I'm like, what the hell? This actually happens. I'm not joking, this actually happens. So reality is, maker spaces are literal answer to that. It's like, dude, we cannot have this. Tools are cheap nowadays because of mass production. Experience and learning is far more precious than any tool. And not to mention, even if tool practically breaks, you can rebuild it. So ability to get down and dirty is also another interesting aspect of maker spaces. Maker spaces are basically a place where you're like, okay, let's do something. Now what does that do something means? You can have hundreds of school assets where they're like, do this exam, do this assignment, all that. All they are doing is just writing things on paper or a computer. It's inherently not real. Inherently it's not real. But does real life work like that? Hell no. You have to make an actual component, or even a server, or something like, a webcam, or a tool, a car, or a rocket, or something. You have to make something physical. You have to get down and dirty. So for this reason, this is very priceless. If your kid understands this thoroughly, it's like, dude, an idea is just not an idea that I draw out on a paper. It's something that I have to physically build. It's priceless. So this, I'm talking about a lot of this maker culture, and this has become a very hot topic. And every Tom, Dick, and Harry, from TED Talk to Bill Gates to Chevrolet to even in Indian companies, and they are putting money into it. The sole reason for that, it's a different kind of culture. So what people realize, our school system has failed us. Like, flat out, you take, like, we took 100 people. How many people actually came out which are capable? That number is really bad. It's like, whoa. You took 5 million kids and barely got, like, 50-60 useful out of the other end. That was like that. No. So the makerspace, the culture, the hackerspace, and all that jazz, it's a culture. What does that mean? That is basically anti-school kind of system. So it's a place where you can go bonkers. They will only give you, like, school supposed to give you assignments, like let's say, make a rain meter. How? Up to you. It's no longer like, old school lab system where it's like, this is the battery, this is the resistor, this is the LED, this is how you connect it. No, go YOLO, like, literally do. And that's the amazing aspect of, like, people can actually see that. Like, you will say, make a, like, wind gauge, like how fast the wind is rotating, and these are the tools that you have. Go YOLO on that. Like, literally every kid will come up with something different. And that's first time when teachers use that, is like, whoa, I only thought that was possible in one way, because again, they have only one set of eyes. So that realization requires a certain kind of free space, like a space where you're like, no, I'm safe here. Like, I got this. Nobody's gonna judge me, or like, you are doing it wrong. Like, literally, there are people, like, there are Indian teachers who are so uptight. You can solve a mathematical equation properly. Like, this was a mathematical, I gave the correct answer. Because your method was wrong, they will fail you in exam. Like, what the heck? So this kind of spaces were designed very specifically. None of that BS, because real life does not care. So a space where you can go bonkers. That's the first requirement. Like, you just have one starting point and end game. You go bonkers. Now, is this space is not meant in such a way where it's like teachers gonna help you. No, the space is where other people is gonna help you. And this makerspace is not limited to school only. There are people who just built it just for YOLO. It's like, there are a lot of teenagers who want to do something. Heck, there are a lot of jobless people, they want to do something for any reason. Like, there are places who have makerspace that run 24/7. So some people who have like a daytime job, they come during the night time and learn some new skill and craft and all that. So this is a place specifically built with a different kind of culture in mind, a place to go bonkers. They will not judge you. Like, there will be rules and regulations, especially if you're talking about something that is very dangerous and powerful. They're like, bro, if you don't know how to ask someone who knows this. So again, there are certain guidelines, but this place is designed specifically for you to help others and learn from others. It's not like, oh, there's a teacher who's going to help us. No. It's like, you help them. Like, you figure something out, you tell others. If they figure something out, they will tell you. And this place allows people to learn the core architecture of something. For example, I learned a lot. Like, I had a lot of this idea of like, hey, I'm gonna do this in electronics. I have no idea. Like, I literally had this one of the kid in my Telegram group is like, I want to make a satellite. I'm like, okay, have you built a PCB? No. Have you built any code? Like, actual code? I don't know. How the heck did you even had the idea? Because your core understanding was missing. Why core understanding was missing? Because all the students are only exposed to books, and books look like complete thing. Real life is never that clean. So having there, like, getting it, your hand dirty will actually expose you. Oh, this is how I do things. This is how I figure out. This is why I need. Like, if you have hundreds of wirelines, no. Now I understand why people spend time building a PCB. So this core learning, this core understanding allows you to be grounded, allows you to be like, okay, this is how things are done. So you don't look like a fool and you say something like, I'm gonna build a satellite and I have never even made a PCB. So you have to understand this. And the assignments here is like getting actual things done, actual physical things done. Like, you can have an assignment, hey, make a box. You can laser cut it and like draw a box in a paper or a CAD software. That's one thing. But making a physical box is like, no, this was my dimension, this was my box, and this is how I built it. That's completely different. So many makerspace, like many people have started to make this in communities. Even in India, there is like around 20-30 places, which is surprisingly little given how big our population is, but at least there is a start, at least there is a hope in that. Bangalore has it, Mumbai has it, like almost all metropolitan has it. So the culture is very simple. Like, people come in there like, dude, I'm just gonna use their laser cutter, because they generally have a small fee, like around 1,000 rupees or something like that. So it's a very small fee, per month fee you have to do, and you can use their tools. You have to bring your own material, obviously, but that's it. And people go there by that intention. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna use that tool. But over time, they start to stay there longer and longer, and they start to build more and more project, because that's the whole point. That's why I'm specifying this. That's the culture, a real world culture. It's like truth. Because like something very interesting come up with when I was researching this. Basically, engineer in Hyundai, who was responsible for recruiting and all that, is like, we expect nowadays for a mechanical engineer to know electrical engineering. I'm like, what the hell? Why? Or how the heck that will even happen? If you are in actual makerspace, even if you are building a simple mechanical device, so somebody, if you are surrounded by other people, they will like, dude, I think I can add LED to this. It's like, that Big Bang episode where it's like, you can always add Bluetooth. So that's the whole thing. It's a different kind of culture. Now, the reason why I'm making this is because, again, this is my country. India is my country, and we have to do this. Now, thankfully, India is slowly learning and realizing like our education system is just useless. Like, wow, it's like when you actually go to nitty gritty, and it's like, dude, it's just not good. The sole reason we look like so brilliant is simply because we have such a large population. Is that even if, like, of course, if you have 1 billion people, probability of having a multiple Nobel laureates would be ludicrously high. So that's why, like, because of that number, we kind of like overinflate ourselves. But reality, nitty gritty reality, it's really bad. So unemployment is a really big factor in India. Not because we do not know how to do things. It's simply because we don't know how to do anything properly. It's like there are 80% engineers. This is India. This was done around 2016, so not very ancient, or 16 or 18. 80% engineers who get like actual degree from an actual college and actual tracking and all that jazz, they are not employed as engineers. Some of them are working in banking, some of them are running shops, some of them are doing something else. Then what was the point of it? Because engineering is not cheap, it's very expensive to do engineering. It's not to mention it's very stressful, and not to mention time, like you spent 4 years of it, like that time you're not going to get back. So why the heck that happens? Reality is our education system is really bad. That's why we need this kind of makerspace where people like, okay, I have to solve problem on my own. Like our education system is really harmful to us. Now, something Steve Wozniak said that at first I was like very angry about it, but then I realized no, he's right. Like he specified, success in India is based on getting a job. That's it. Like in India, we think like poor people. It's like, oh, you got a job, you're awesome, you're successful, you are greatest there ever been, and like that's it, the end, game over. Get a government job, oh man, awesome. Everything else, no. Do you know anything? No. Who cares? It's like government job, man. That's it. So reality is that we are not creative people. So outcome of that is again unemployment. Like that is not something like who cares? No, we're gonna starve to death if that happens. So thankfully start can be small, and many basically high-end schools, universities, they are realizing that we have to have makerspace. We have to teach basically our student to solve problems, because reality is colleges, accepting some colleges, accepting basically removing few very high-end universities, most universities and colleges are behind schedule. They will always be behind schedule unless you are talking about MIT. Most of them you are behind schedule. So why the heck other peoples are not facing the same issue, like unbalanced in India? Simply because the colleges, university, I have a standard that allow you to teach some things basically where you're like, okay, I can solve a problem, I can understand something. And India is like really bad. It's like, first it's outdated, on top of that the way we are teaching it is like, yeah, we literally trim away any ability to problem solve. So we have to solve this, because this simply cannot go on. Simply we cannot have a scenario where like millions of parents are wasting their money, time, precious life, and which also has darker side effects of that. So we must fix this, and thankfully it's a surprisingly cheap endeavor given the context of like how much money people spend on like college degrees and all that. So making a makerspace, and it's good for even jobless youth, whereas like not every Tom, Dick and Harry has enough money to like do a proper college grad and all that, and not everybody needs it. So we have to do this. So start can be small, but effect will be huge. And many people, and I mean throughout the planet, have realized that this is something that we have to do. We cannot just rely on education system because it's flat out failing us. It's not like, okay, it would have been better if it was better. No, it's harming us. And not to mention, we are slowly being approached by AI, slowly coming towards us, slowly taking away our jobs without us realizing it. So we have to be ready. It's no longer like, oh, we have time. No, time is out. So we must do this. The makerspace are like a kind of like a fighting chance for our youth to survive, so to say. So this was my presentation. I know it was very discussed and very uncollaborated. The reason was it's a very emotional topic. This is a very harsh reality which I always wanted to avoid. It's like, no, India is awesome, but like, wait a minute, 80% went into engineering, completed it, and then nothing. Like that's very painful, so to say. So that is why I wanted to make this video. There is a hope, there is a potential, there is a solution, and you can look it up. Like, and I can guarantee you are surrounded by at least one makerspace space. A worst case scenario, one train ride away. It will be in your country, it will be in your city if you're lucky. So if you like this presentation, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.